Nothing in the Lou Brydges Show is intended to be legal analysis, legal advice, or legal recommendations that would be applicable to your particular situation. Everyone in foreclosure or underwater with their mortgage are encouraged to seek legal counsel for a review of your specific situation. Welcome to the weekly broadcast of the Lou Brydges Show, telling the truth about the foreclosure crisis and the greatest financial crime in history that created it. Are you in foreclosure, at risk of foreclosure, or underwater with your mortgage? Do you know someone who is? Every week on this show, you'll get real answers from a real attorney. Lou Brydges will explain options in the foreclosure process. He'll talk about defective mortgages, mortgage restructuring, loan modification, short sale negotiation, and discuss what to look for when choosing a foreclosure defense attorney. Lou is an experienced foreclosure defense lawyer on the front lines of mortgage defense and litigation. Lou is dedicated to helping you keep your property. And now, it's time for the Lou Brydges Show and the truth about foreclosure. Here's your host, Lou Brydges.
Good morning, Chicagoland. I'm Lou Brydges with the Lou Brydges Show with my wingman, Mike Main, my producer, Debbie Schreiber.
Hello,
welcome.
Chicagoland.
Welcome back, and I want to thank everyone who has called and written in and commented on the Facebook page. Mike?
Oh, absolutely.
Facebook.
I'm sorry.
What is it? The Lou Brydges Show.
Lou Brydges Show. Facebook.com/The Lou Brydges Show.
And we're really starting to generate a lot of comment and discussion here, and I particularly want to thank Jim. I don't know if he wants me to use his last name, so I'll just call him Jim P. Jimmy P. He's a friend of mine, actually, who goes by Jimmy K. So, Jimmy P., thank you for your comments, and we've been exchanging comments, and I actually have done a little research that I'll get to in a minute. But as always, we must start the show with a tribute to one of our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, who warned this generation of Americans. I mean, he over 250 years ago, he wrote, actually it was a little over 200 years ago, 1802, so about 211 years ago, he wrote to current Americans, "I believe that the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If you, the American people, ever allow these banks to control the issue of currency by whatever means possible, the banks and the corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of their property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered." And that's what's happening today. And it's happening because of not the greatest crime in history, the greatest crime spree in history, perpetrated by the mortgage industry, really by the Wall Street investment banks that were bundling and packaging the mortgage-backed securities and taking advantage of the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guarantees on the mortgages. Now, Jimmy P. suggests that the foreclosure crisis is nearing an end, and we actually did. I have my research staff do some research, and I have some numbers. And Jimmy, you couldn't be more wrong. Foreclosure filings in Cook County last month, closing 3,000. That's 36,000 per year. 2 years ago, in March of 2011, 3,000, approaching 36,000 per year. That's in Cook County alone. In the greater Chicagoland area, you're talking about double that number, about 70,000 per year. Now, there's only about, in the Chicagoland area, there's about, I guess it's about 400, and anyway, that's about 20, it's almost 20%. Well over 10%, which means that over a 10-year period, everybody will be facing foreclosure. Well, not everybody will be facing foreclosure, but the point is that 1 out of 200 of homes will be foreclosed upon. Every month, there's 250,000 new families enter foreclosure around the country. The numbers here, and I've got a chart here, the numbers are down from 2009 and 2010 slightly, but since 2011, January 2011, it's been averaging about 3,000 a month. And so far this year, it is down a little slightly, Jim, this year. We're a little under 3,000. Last year, just every month was over 3,000 last year. And so far, we're just a little slightly under. So it looks like it's down about 10%. But a lot of that is the result of the banks being caught in a lot of their lies. And they have to clean things up before they file foreclosure. I've gone in the past weeks about all the whistleblowers that have come out. Because you see, people, it's, and the show is supposed to be about the truth, and that's what it's about. The whole foreclosure thing and the crime spree that was perpetrated is all about lies. lies about the value of the property. The reason that there are still something like 40% of American families underwater is that the mortgage industry artificially inflated the cost of American real estate by 131% over the 10-year period from 1998 to 2008. The $100,000 house in 1998 cost $231,000. Why? Because it was a Ponzi scheme. Mortgage-backed securities, the more money that is brought into mortgage-backed securities, the more money is available for mortgages, the more gimmicks that are put out there, the more the prices go up. Now, the real estate brokers, they're taking advantage of this because they're making money, and Wall Street knows they're going to take advantage of this. The the mortgage originators are taking advantage of this, and Wall Street knows. They are puppets in perpetrating this crime. And we all know these housewives that all of a sudden were real estate magnates with their 2 cell phones and flipping houses and everything, and these real estate brokers that are making, and originators that are making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $600,000 a year. Because Wall Street needs collaborators, and they're not necessarily doing anything wrong, although, as it turns out, the vast majority of mortgage originators were originated based on a whole slew of unlawful activity on the part of the originator, unlawful representations and other acts and omissions in violations of federal law, which I'll get to later. But the thing is, this is a bubble, an artificial bubble, a superheated bubble that was created by Wall Street, because when you take 56 million residential mortgages in the country and you artificially inflate the cost of real estate by 131%, and that paper that is created, that debt paper that Americans have signed on to, that is alone 131%. $100,000 on the average, 56 million residential mortgages comes to $5.5 trillion. Now, 1% of that, which is what Wall Street gets, is $50 billion. 1%, the originator gets $50 billion. And that's for people that just paid 2 points. For people that pay 3 points, you're basically talking about $150 billion. But the key point is that this is just the increase, the artificial inflation that is caused by the fact that the more money comes into mortgage-backed securities, the more money is available for mortgages, the more real estate prices get pushed up 10% a year, every single year for a 10-year period. The cost of lumber didn't go up. The cost of wood didn't go up. The cost of nails didn't go up. Nothing. Concrete it didn't go up anywhere near that amount. It is an artificial bubble. It's what we call in Economics 101, what you learned for those of you who took Economics 101 in college, Holland tulips. It's the case study of Holland tulips all over again, the original Ponzi scheme. The more you make of something, and Bernie Madoff, the more money that's invested into Bernie Madoff, the more money he pays out. The more money he pays out, the more people invest in him. It's the same thing with the mortgage-backed securities and the cost of real estate. Because what it is Wall Street is creating paper, $5.5 trillion of paper based on, the $5.5 additional $1 trillion of value, of supposed value that doesn't really exist. It's an artificial bubble. And this paper, they can convert into currency. By creating debt, you create currency, as another one of our listeners point out. And it's an illusion, and that's why the banks have taken over, and that's why they're taking over branches of government like the OCC and the Fed. And that is the danger that Thomas Jefferson warned us about. We have had, in the last 10 years, the greatest transfer of human wealth in human history. And that has been from the vast majority of 56 million American families to 2,000 or 3,000 people on Wall Street, and who are behind this scheme. And one of them was convicted this last week for Brydges. And what he was doing, what he was convicted was creating something that he knew was going to default. He created a mortgage-backed security, sold it to investors, sold it with the protection to them, the private mortgage insurance and the credit default swap, so that he could buy, through other subsidiaries, 10 credit default swaps, essentially making a bet that what he put together would fail. And he knew it would fail because he had put it together. He had given the originator such incentive. Give him a 0% mortgage. Give him a 0% for 2 years and promise him that when the interest rate kicks in, you'll get him another 0%. You just produce the paper. Get the homeowner's signature on the note and mortgage. And that's what originators did. But that is where you may have some defenses to the foreclosure lawsuit, because there are laws about what can be said and can't be said and what must be disclosed and the origination of a mortgage. And those were violated en masse. That's French for all over the board, all across the board. They were violated. And then that's just in the origination of the mortgages. But in the securitization, the transfers to the trust or that's own the mortgage, you've got a New York case called a failure of condition precedent. They didn't transfer them properly. They didn't transfer them in accordance with the Illinois Conveyances Act, the Recorders Act, the Notary Act. And we've got case law that's coming out now. So if you're underwater facing foreclosure, there are things you can do. Even if you want to sell your house, if you're underwater, you can't sell your house. And I want to point out to Mr. Jimmy P. that you, of all people, a real estate broker, should be supporting restructuring of mortgages because right now, about 40% of the homes out there, people can't sell because they're underwater. Your market is limited by 40%. Because there's these people that can't sell, can't buy either. All right, I've run out of time.
224-513-1231. Facebook.com/The Lou Brydges Show.
Welcome back to the Lou Brydges Show with Louis Brydges, one of Chicago's leading foreclosure defense attorneys. Here's Lou to tell you what to look for when hiring a foreclosure defense attorney and how to avoid being conned on AM 560. The Answer.
Welcome back to the Lou Brydges Show. Again, just some of these statistics. I want to quote my source. It's this is the Chicago foreclosure statistic for March. Activity levels, ChicagoNow.com. Jimmy, you're just wrong. Jimmy was focusing. I guess he called his list pendants. By the way, it's list pendants, not list pendants. List pendants, Latin for the litigation pending. You don't have to file a list pendants when you file a foreclosure lawsuit because the title company is going to pick up the fact that there's a lawsuit. Now, you should, and they do, at least that's the practice, and that's the common practice, but it's not necessary to file a list pendants. That's notice to the world that there's litigation pending regarding the ownership of this real estate so the people don't go out and sell it. But anymore, title companies, they also check the court filings and they see there's a foreclosure lawsuit and, oh, wow, they forgot to file the list pendants or they didn't file it or they got so many filings that they don't have enough people to do it or to file everything. But foreclosure filings are down only slightly. And Jim says, well, then in a state of 20 million, well, first of all, the population of Illinois is only 10 million. And I was only talking Chicago, Cook County. And I'm only talking about, the number of homes. The fact remains is that filings are pretty much steady for the last for the last 2 years, at about 3,000 a month, and that's Cook County, and the rest of the collar counties are going to be the same. So you're talking 60,000 a year, and there's maybe 500,000 homes in the Chicagoland area.
And regardless, at the end of the day, when you're in foreclosure, you don't care how many other people are going through it.
It reminds me, we are nowhere near. I mean, Jim, I know that you follow and you're a real estate broker and you follow things, but, I got a whole staff of people that we're following things all around the country and we're reading, everything that's going on. And, I've summarized it this way. We are not anywhere near the end. We are not even at the beginning of the end. We are, to coin Winston's phrase, perhaps at the end of the beginning, but that's it. And the end of the beginning, because now what's coming out, and which is one reason why foreclosures are down, maybe down slightly, is that the banks have been sabotaging modification efforts. Now, any one of you that have tried for a modification, you don't need me to tell you that. Well, but the news reports we get from the over a dozen whistleblowers have come out, given affidavits, sworn deposition testimony in front of federal judges in federal lawsuits brought by the Justice Department that we were given bonuses to give people the runaround. We were told to lie to homeowners applying for modification. These are people in the modification departments at Bank of America, Wells Fargo, PNC, that we were told to lie to customers. We were told to sandbag them, drag them along, tell them, well, we lost your we don't have your documents, you didn't forward them to us. Your application's stale now, or it looks like you're going to be okay for a modification. Don't worry, you're going to get a modification. Don't worry about the foreclosure lawsuit that was filed by the attorneys because you're going to get a modification. All of that was lies. I've been telling you, these banks are criminal organizations. Why can I go on the air and say that? Did you ever wonder why I can go on the air and say Bank of America is a criminal organization? They've been sued by the government. They've been convicted of crimes. They've agreed to settlement agreements as a redress for past criminal activity. They are engaged in unlawful acts. They are violations of federal regulations. They are, and they have been, and the biggest thing they've been doing, and the reason, and what I don't think a lot of people understand is it's not their money. Government guaranteed loans or private trusts own the money. The banks only service the loans. And the service fees for a loan in foreclosure are 30 times what they are for a loan not. And there's not any additional work. I mean, a loan in foreclosure, arguably, there's less work because you don't have to open up the envelope and process the check. The case is referred to a law firm, and it's in foreclosure. So, Wells Fargo, this is the often cited statistic. 7 million mortgages Wells Fargo services. If 7 million mortgages are performing, they get about $70 million a month, about $10 per mortgage for opening the envelope and processing the check. They're a bank. That's what they do. That's what they should do. But if 1 million, just 14% of those mortgages are in foreclosure, they get $300 per month for that 1 million. That's $300 million a month. Plus $60 million for the other $6 million that are still performing, if only 1 million are in foreclosure. So you go from $70 million to $360 million, a difference of $290 million. Allow me, for purposes of making the math easy, to call it $300 million. Multiplied by 12 months, that comes to $3.6 billion per year of revenue, which is what Wells Fargo earned last year in the foreclosure business. The banks are making money pushing you into foreclosure. That's why the modification programs have been abject failures. That's why they were sued for violating the settlement agreement. That's why the independent, and then they agreed. I want to get to the independent foreclosure reviews. The reason they paid $9 billion to homeowners was because they had only conducted independent foreclosure reviews on 250,000 out of 1,500,000 foreclosures that were accomplished in 2009 and 2010, is because they were finding that the vast majority of foreclosures that they had accomplished, situations in which they dispossessed an American family of their home, was based on fraud upon the court. There was some defect in the securitization, in the documentation, and something was just, last week we read to you on the air. There's services that will correct or fill in the missing gaps on the chain of title.
DocX.
The Illinois Attorney General, bless her heart, Lisa Madigan, and I can't go a show without, Lisa Madigan is one of the attorney generals. I would like to see her do more, but I certainly can't criticize her for the volume of enforcement activity she's bringing against these document production companies that are just fabricating, basically, the banks and the corporations that go up around them. One of the corporations that have grown up around them is a corporation that makes money producing fraudulent documents to be used in court to foreclose upon people and dispossess them of their home. That's what this is coming to. That's what this has come to. That's why I took on this show. I don't think that, there's this growing segment of the American population that is, just like me, that get this and are spouting this off. And it's growing and growing. But why isn't this on 60 Minutes? Why isn't this national news? I mean, there's Living Lies, there's Top Foreclosure Fraud, and me, and there's, a whole host of others.
Elizabeth Warren,
the United States Senator, is onto this, but why isn't some politician? I talked to Joe Walsh on this station. I said, Joe, this is the issue of our times. You could grab onto this issue and ride it like a tsunami wave. Surfing a tsunami wave into a comeback. In the political future. But it's a very complex issue, and so many people want to just say, well, the homeowner, they signed a note and they're reneging on an obligation. You sign an obligation based on unlawful conduct, unlawful inducement, deceptive inducement, fraudulent inducement. And you're not obligated to perform that. Now, I'm not ever saying, and I will say this, we know you're not going to get your home free and clear of a mortgage. But you should have a mortgage that's based on the true fair market value of the property, not one that's $100,000 more than the property is worth. And anyone, and that's 20 million Americans that are underwater, that are behind it, they should stop paying their mortgage. Well, the vast majority of them should stop paying their mortgage and demand that they get a renegotiation to a fair mortgage. The reason I'm $100,000 underwater isn't because of some cyclical downturn in the housing industry. It was because there was a fraudulent appraisal. And the reason there was a fraudulent appraisal is the originator was getting a huge commission for producing the note. So he hired an appraiser, and it was the mortgage originator that hired the appraiser. He hired an appraiser that was going to say, yeah, it's worth $250,000, $350,000, whatever. What do you need on this appraisal is what usually the appraiser's first question is. And that's what led to a over 10% every year for 10 consecutive years increase in the cost of American homes. So it's that by over a 10-year period, there was a 131% increase, and the $100,000 home is now selling for $231,000. Now, people like Jim were making a bundle on this ride, and they were big shots because they were making a ton of money. We're selling in houses, and people were selling them and buying them and flipping them, and everybody all of a sudden is it's like right before the Depression, somebody who got out of the stock market beforehand, they said, well, how did you know to get out? How did you see it? He said, well, I got in a cab and I got a tip. I got a stock tip from a cab driver. And I have nothing against cab drivers, but they don't know. And it's the same thing with the real estate market. Go ahead,
Join
Mike.
the discussion at facebook.com/The Lou Brydges Show. That's Brydges with a Y. Give us a call, 224-513-1231. But whatever you do, don't give up the land.
Never give up the land. Fight for truth and justice.
Louis Brydges of the law firm Brydges & O & Associates, one of the leading foreclosure defense firms in the Chicago area, rejoins you now on the Lou Brydges Show. Here's Lou on how you might avoid foreclosure and deal with a mortgage that's underwater.
Welcome back to the Lou Brydges Show. I've been talking very quickly. I'm really up this morning, 2 cups of coffee and really going. And we've been talking about the foreclosure crisis, and the foreclosure onslaught is we're not even at the end of the beginning yet. There's going to be a steady 3,000 a month in Cook County, and probably 6,000 a month filings in the Chicagoland area per month, 70, 80,000, almost 100,000 a year for the next 5 to 10 years. And until we get to the solution. And the solution is restructuring of the mortgage. You're going to continue to have mass numbers of people defaulting in the mortgage when they're behind. The fact is, if you're paying a $300,000 mortgage on a house that's worth $150,000 or $200,000, even if you're overpaying by $100,000, over the life of a mortgage, time 30 years, that's $300,000. It comes to about $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year. Now, that's $1,000 a month that you could be doing to take a family trip to Disney World, or buy the kids hockey equipment, or
put tires on the car.
Put tires in the car, or get
put the kids in a better
piano
school
for the daughter, taking piano lessons. But then that's the point I'm making, is that the American family, and that's why I do what I do, is that the American family is being destroyed by this, not every family, but there's a lot of American families that are being destroyed, and a lot of people being dispossessed of the home. And
a lot of other ones that are just being negatively affected by it
negatively
as well.
affected. Yeah, there's many people stuck in their homes. Jim, 40% of your market can't sell their house, which means they can't buy a new one because they're underwater. And the simple solution is what all economists say is the right thing to do, is what the new appointed director of FHA says has long been a strong advocate for restructuring a mortgage. But the point is, and the irony is that you can't get a restructuring of the mortgage if you're current. We have a process that we do now in which we say we're going to suspend payment. A lot of what we do now is for people that are underwater. Typical client calls us and says, I owe $300,000 and a house is only worth $180,000, $200,000 in the neighborhood. That's what they're going for. And I'm paying. I can't sell the house because, I only get $180,000 for it, and I don't have $120,000 in my back pocket. And what can I do? Well, what we do is we demand a restructuring. We get an audit, and we say, Well, as it turns out, the appraisal was not conducted in accordance with federal regulations, and you bought the house, you signed the note of mortgage based on that misinformation, and that information that was given to you by the originator, and all these other unlawful acts or omissions.
To people that don't know, expand on that.
A forensic audit examines everything associated with the origination of the mortgage, the solicitation, the application, the processing of the application, the appraisal, the closing, and the servicing of the loan. That finds massive violations, very often massive violations of federal regulations, everything from RESPA and TILA. And it's not just that your remedies are limited to those under RESPA and TILA. That's a consumer violation of the Consumer Fraud Act. That's a violation, and the securitization audit tracks the securitization through all the transfers. And those transfers using MERS and all the other things were just not done in accordance with according to Hoyle. They weren't done in accordance with the Illinois Conveyances Act, Recorders Act, and the Notaries Act. And more cases are coming out of New York, which is where all the trusts are based, and saying if it's a failed securitization, if it wasn't transferred into the trust in accordance with the declaration of trust, then it's void. It didn't happen. Because a trust is a legal fiction, can only do what it's declared to do. This doesn't mean there's not a note and mortgage. It means it's still owned by some SPV, special purpose vehicle, which means that the bank that's been attempting to collect the debt has been attempting to collect the debt on behalf of somebody that that doesn't own the mortgage, which is a violation of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. And they probably have damaged their credit rating as a result, which is a violation of the Fair Debt Credit Reporting Act. So quite frankly, these banks that, were just making money on the servicing, it's like, I don't care. It's, we actually want more money, loans in foreclosure. The thing is they've got a massive potential liability out there. And the only solution for them is a restructuring of the mortgage. Because in the restructuring, the homeowner's going to give up. Okay. Tell you what, you violated some regulations and laws and I have some claims against you. Well, here's the solution. That $300,000 note, which is a fiction anyway. I mean, you're never going to collect $300,000 on it because the house is only worth $180,000. The people aren't going to live there for 30 years and pay $300,000 for a $180,000 house. You restructure the mortgage. Now people can buy and sell. Now housing comes back. Now the economy is stimulated because people have $1,000 more in their pocket. When you have 20 million, 40%, 20 million American homeowners underwater, that's a huge drain on the economy because that money is being stifled off. Where is it going to? It's going to where is it going to is a question. Living Lies points out, and where's that thing from Living Lies? Neil Garfield. I'm going to have to read it in the next segment, but you have to understand that the forensic audit and the securitization audit give an attorney who's knowledgeable in the field the ammunition to either defend a foreclosure lawsuit, demand a restructuring, assist you if you want to move out of your house to get the payoff letter down. Sure. Something. But, you have to have the facts. You have to have the truth. It's always about the truth. The truth is that transcendent power. And the lies are self-defeating because the lies require more and more lies to cover up. Never give up the land. Fight for truth and justice. You will not be alone.
We now return to the Lou Brydges Show, telling the truth about the foreclosure crisis and the greatest financial crime in history. Here's Lou Brydges, an attorney on the front lines of the ongoing battle for our land.
Hello, I'm back. Welcome back, Lou Brydges. Hopefully we've debunked the myth that I was quite surprised when I got on the Facebook page. Most of everything's been very supportive, but this Jimmy P was saying that I was full of crap, that the foreclosure crisis was an illusion, that it was coming to an end, and that Liz pendants, he called them, where filings were down. Well, Liz pendants filings might be down, but the filing of foreclosure lawsuits is not down that much anyway, and it's still a massive number, and there's still 20 million American families that are underwater, and a lot of them live in Chicago area. And as long as they're underwater, the whole housing market is, and any temporary little spike in housing prices isn't a signal of the housing market coming back. And one of the reasons is that so many people's homes can't be sold because people are underwater and they wouldn't realize enough from the sale to pay the payoff letter. So they can't sell. So, there's, whenever there's a supply demand situation, that's going to push up make an illusory spike in prices. And the other thing is, there's a lot of investors who have cash are getting in there and buying homes cheap. You know, one of the things that we often do is, and it's been a very successful program, is say you've got the situation where there's a $300,000 mortgage and the house is worth $200,000. Well, our audit, we found a lot of problems with a lot of unlawful activity in the origination and in the securitization. So we've got affirmative defenses of lack of standing, unlawful inducement, deceptive inducement, fraud in the inducement, appraisal misfeasance, malfeasance, failure to disclose a conflict of interest. We got a whole laundry list of affirmative defenses. And we hit them with requests to admit and interrogatories, requests for production. We got, a whole team and a whole game plan for hitting them with all this stuff. And so the foreclosure lawsuit is just going to spin its wheels for years. And then we're going to be counterclaims under Consumer Fraud Act, Fair Debt Collection Practices, Fair Debt Credit Reporting. So the homeowner is going to stay in the home paying our monthly fee for as long as it takes. A year, 2, 3. I got cases been going for 5 years, and they're no closer to foreclosure or sheriff's sale than they were when the case was filed. But that's not an end game solution. The end game is restructuring. And the form of restructuring is we actually have investors that will come in and let's say, they have cash, billions of dollars of cash, and they want to spend it. They want to invest it in something, a good investment. So they'll come in, $300,000 home or $200,000 home with a $300,000 mortgage. The bank knows at the end of the day, they're not going to get more than $200,000, and they're going to have to finish the foreclosure, and they're going to have to hire a real estate broker or a broker to give up 6%, and then they're going to have to maintain the property and pay the taxes and the insurance. And nationwide, the statistics are they're going to net about 45 cents of the true fair market value. So they're going to net at the end of the day, 3 to 4 years from now, 45 cents of $200,000 is $90,000. Even if they get 50%, they're going to get $100,000. The investor says, right now, it's like a short sale. Right now, I'll give you $120,000 or $140,000 for the place. And very often, the bank will take it. And I just ask for the homeowner 3 things. One is release of the deficiency, because there's a $300,000 debt that the bank's only getting $140,000 for. No problem. I ask for a second thing is that we want neutral credit reporting. Since this is a settlement agreement that's being reached, I want you to report to the credit bureaus that the debt has been resolved to the mutual satisfaction of the borrower and lender. And the third thing I want is the homeowner is going to need relocation expenses, $10,000. And usually we get 5. But the thing is that you don't even really have to relocate because the investor wants you to stay in the property. Because now they've got a $200,000 property for $140,000. Now, they can't sell it back to you because of this obscure Illinois law that's probably indefinitely unconstitutional and certainly unenforceable and nobody really cares about, but there is a law and the investor doesn't want to run afoul of it, that they can't sell the house back to you for 2 years. So you get a contract for deed in 2 years. In 2 years, the investor has to give you the deed for $195,000 so that you've got $5,000 of equity. In the meantime, you pay the investor rent. Which is based on a $200,000 house, a fair market value rent for a $200,000 house, which is a lot better than paying a $300,000 mortgage on a $200,000 house. So the investor buys it for $140,000. He's going to sell it to you in 2 years for $200,000, $195,000 or $190,000, depending on what the better deal we can negotiate. But let's just call it $200,000. The investor's going to make his money. He's going to get rent in the meantime. He's got a fully secured house. You get to stay there. And the thing is that what this is a recognition of and why the investors are the really smart people, these investors, because the recognition of the truth. And the truth is a great portion of the value of the residential real estate is the homeowner taking care of it. Building the cute little stone fences and the picket fences that we used to build back in England, where my people come from. You see, the land itself is valuable. It is the only thing that's real. That's why they call it real estate. But the people that own the land are not the dirty, grubby money grubbing bankers in New York or London. It's the homeowner. It's the people on the land. That's their home. It's not some game or some tool to be played with by Wall Street investment banks. It's a home. And the value comes from the homeowner on the home, taking care of it, cutting the grass, mowing the lawn, fixing the gutters, painting it, planting the flowers, and making it occupied and lived in. And if you don't believe me, you go down to King County, Florida. You see vast tracts of homes you can buy for $100 because they're empty and they've been mold and it costs more to tear them down than they're worth. So that's another option that we have. If the banks won't agree to restructure, is that we buy out the bank. about the bank for a lot more than the bank's going to get. But restructuring is the key to revival of the American economy, the key to revival of the real estate brokers industry. Jim, you should be the biggest advocate for restructuring, because right now you got about 40% of the homes that can't be sold. People can't sell them.
Join the conversation at facebook.com/The Lou Brydges Show. That's Brydges with a Y. Give us a call, 224-513-1231.
Listen to the battle forevermore, because that's what this is, the battle forevermore.
Welcome back to The Lou Brydges Show with Louis Brydges, one of Chicago's leading foreclosure defense attorneys. Here's Lou to tell you what to look for when hiring a foreclosure defense attorney and how to avoid being conned on AM 560. The Answer.
Welcome back, folks. I've been really out on a roll today, as those of you who have been listening know. But I'm very passionate about this because it is about the land, and it is about the fabric and of our country, the home, the American home. And I go down to King County, Florida, and it just breaks my heart. I see vast tracts, entire subdivisions of vacant homes, and that are mold and deteriorated and graffiti and weeds and become worthless because nobody's been living in them. They've been foreclosed upon. And meanwhile, then you go to the Walmarts and you see the kids lined up in the morning. You see tent cities, and you go down Motel Row. The buses they don't go to the subdivisions. They go down Motel Row to pick up the kids going to school. Now, a lot of these kids that are living in with a family of 4 or 5 or 6 in a one-room motel room, a lot of them are going to grow up and be productive members of society, and a lot are not. And who's going to be to blame? Well, I don't know, but I'm very passionate about this because, the Thomas Jefferson's thing, and if you listen to the music we play on the show, it all tries to tie in. Our theme song is All Along the Watchtower, because that's pretty much what this is. We play the Battle of Evermore, in which Sandy Denny joined with, the late Sandy Denny, joined and talked about what I think this is the Battle of Evermore, because it's always been about the land. It always will be about the land. It's the only thing that's real. And the land belongs to the people around it who care for it and till the soil. And if you listen to some of the words of our songs, that's what we're talking about. There must be some way out of here from this foreclosure thing, said the joker. Somebody joking to think that there's a way out of here. And there is a way out. Businessmen, they drink my wine, plowmen dig my earth, but none of them really know what any of it is worth. And then the thief says, no reason to get excited. The thief, if I kindly spoke, there are many here among us who just think that life is but a joke. But you and I, we've been through that, and this will not be our fate. So let us stop talking falsely now. The hour is getting late. Enough with the lies. All along the watchtower, the princes, the rich, they keep their view. Well, all their women, all their whores come and go, and their barefoot servants, too. But outside, in the distance, a wildcat has growled, and riders are approaching, and the wind is beginning to howl. That's That's the movement that's happening in this country, is to take this back from these Wall Street bankers and investment bankers and these big banks. And again, I've never been talking about the local community banks. I've always been talking about the big boys, the J.P. Morgan Chase and the Wells Fargo and the Bank of America, all the ones that you read about in the newspaper just about every day, being found guilty of manipulating interest or storing commodities or... All right, well, we're running out of time. Mike wants to get the Facebook in, but join us in the conversation on Facebook and give us a call. We give free consultations. My partner, Scott O, and I will give everyone a free consultation. Anyone in foreclosure, facing foreclosure, give us a call. Here's Mike with the information.
224.
Thank you for joining us.
224-513-1231 is the number to call. We will give a consultation as well. Join the conversation. Facebook.com/The Lou Brydges Show. That's Brydges with a Y. This is something we all need to talk about. Do not
give up this country. Fight for truth and justice. We've come too far. We've given too much to give it up.
You've been listening to the weekly radio broadcast of the Lou Brydges Show with attorney Louis Brydges, telling the truth about foreclosure. Have you received threats of foreclosure? Are you in a foreclosure right now, seeking a loan modification, considering strategic default, or any other legal action? Know and protect your rights, and do not give up the land. Lou Brydges' passion is to help you keep your home and achieve your legal goals. To receive a free consultation, which may help you decide how to defend against foreclosure, understand your options, and learn what to look for in choosing a foreclosure defense attorney, call 224-513 224-513-1231. That's 224-513-1231. Or visit FightIllinoisForeclosures.com. That's FightIllinoisForeclosures.com. Get real answers from a real foreclosure defense firm and discover the legal tools at your disposal. Tune into AM 560 The Answer next Saturday morning at 8 for the Lou Brydges Show, telling the truth about